You can't cheat on FACEIT secured servers. You will get banned instantly if you try. We've all heard that over and over again. Everyone believes FACEIT has almost no cheaters. The few cheaters it does have all get banned almost instantly. You see a lot of people who exclusively play FACEIT say this since they believe Premier and matchmaking are both full of cheaters and that VAC is a joke. While that may be true, FACEIT is not some safe haven either. One of the common myths that some people believe is that you can only cheat on FACEIT if you're willing to spend thousands of dollars. Most naive people believe this, and even a lot of cheaters believe it. They think a FACEIT cheat costs around $1,000 a month, and even to get access to it, you need to be well connected and know cheat developers so you can get access to some super top secret cheat. While that's a cool fantasy, it's not actually the case. That's not to say that cheating on FACEIT is cheap or easily accessible to the average cheater, but it isn't nearly that difficult to start cheating on FACEIT even if you're complete nobody. All you need is a second PC, a DMA card, a fuser if you want walls, and of course a good custom firmware. You can buy both the DMA card and fuser for less than $200, but the firmware is the real broke check. A good private firmware is the only expensive thing a person will need to buy if they want to cheat on FACEIT. It depends on the seller, but firmware for FACEIT can cost anywhere from $500 to $1,000. The price is pretty arbitrary, so it really just depends on whatever the seller decides. Anyway, once you have the firmware and everything else, you're good to go. As for the cheat itself, literally any DMA cheat will work. The DMA cheat does not matter. They're all undetected, and they'll all work. All that matters is your firmware. A DMA cheat can't be detected, which is another common misconception. As long as the cheat doesn't write memory, you won't ever get banned. The only things that can get detected or blocked are your firmware or KM box, which is also detected on FACEIT. So why does it feel like suddenly FACEIT has a lot more cheaters now? Well, that's because it literally does. Cheating with DMA has greatly risen in popularity over the last few years, which is why FACEIT has a lot more cheaters now. DMA cheats have been around for a long time, but in the last 2 or 3 years, they've blown up in popularity. It also used to be more expensive to buy the whole DMA setup, but now it's dirt cheap. You can buy a DMA card with a fuser and KM box for literally $100. That's how cheap it's become. There are actually so many cheaters who now have a DMA and use it just for matchmaking or Premiere. That used to be unheard of, not only because VAC was a meme and DMA was extremely overkill, but because no one really knew or cared about it. Now, DMA is common knowledge, and everyone and their mom has it, not just for CS2, but for other games as well. The only barrier now is just finding a good firmware and being able to afford it. But aside from that, a lot of cheaters don't even really care if they get banned. Many of them cheat on FACEIT knowing they'll get banned, and they're fine with that. The ban won't come for weeks or even months, and in the meantime, they're free to cheat on FACEIT. Even if they get banned later on, they still ruined a ton of matches and had a lot of fun. Some people assume manual bans are instant on FACEIT. While they used to be, and sometimes still are, oftentimes they're also very slow. It also depends on the region. In Europe, manual bans are usually a lot faster than in North America or Oceania. This is because Europe is the most populated region, so they focus most of their attention there. Meanwhile, most cheaters have already reached level 10 and gained a ton of elo. In cases where the cheater does have custom firmware, they can really just cheat for months, if not years, without getting banned. Assuming they at least have a basic understanding of the game and they aren't monkey blatant, a good cheater can just use radar and closet cheat without ever being caught or even raising suspicion. Most people who cheat on FACEIT only use radar or wall hacks if they have a fuser. Another common misconception is that you can't have wall hacks on FACEIT, since FACEIT takes screenshots of your desktop. While FACEIT does take screenshots, it's easily bypassed since most DMA or external cheats already avoid any type of capture, like OBS. But since using wall hacks is riskier because most cheaters can't properly play it off, most will typically just use radar, which is already a huge advantage. Here's where the waters get muddied. Most DMA cheats have a feature called Cloud Radar. This means the person using the DMA cheat can share their radar with everyone else they're playing with. So everyone on their team will have radar without actually cheating themselves or having DMA. All they have to do is pull up the hosted website, which a lot of cheats even set up for you, and that's it. Now your friend who has never cheated and is squeaky clean can just visit a website on their second monitor or phone and see where the whole enemy team is for the entire game. Would you say that person is cheating? Well, yes, they kind of are. But is there any actual tangible proof of them cheating? There isn't. Technically, they have no cheats and haven't broken any rules. Then you have the cheaters who use AI aimbots, which unlike KMBox, won't get them flagged. Or they use Arduino, which is also typically detected unless they have a good private firmware for it. Most FACEIT cheaters typically don't use any type of aim assist, for multiple reasons, since aim assist is usually a lot easier to notice than someone just having walls. If they do have an aimbot, it's usually AI. FACEIT made a post recently, which looks like it was written by ChatGPT, but regardless, it's just a bunch of code and misinformation. While FACEIT does do a good job and they do block a ton of firmware, the sad reality is that a good cheater with very good firmware who is only using radar probably won't ever get banned. The whole, it's only a matter of time before any cheater, including those using DMA hardware, gets caught, is purely cope and simply not true. We've seen cheaters who were basically raging for over 500 games without getting banned. Only after someone made 2 videos exposing them did they finally get banned. There's a bunch of people making videos about FACEIT cheaters because that seems to be the only way to get them banned now. Compared to Premiere or matchmaking, FACEIT obviously has way less cheaters, but we can't let FACEIT off the hook since it still has a ton of cheaters, and people are actually paying and giving up their privacy to play without them. They should be working extra hard to ban all cheaters, and they just aren't. Most FACEIT staff are clueless, and most have never even played the game. Darwin, who is one of the most well-known community managers for FACEIT, is infamous for ignoring tickets and pretending to care on Reddit or Twitter. Aside from people buying FACEIT accounts to appear legitimate, you even have cheaters in FPL now, since a couple of months ago they changed how getting into FPL works. So really, anyone can be cheating. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter what their inventory is worth, how many hours they have, or what their elo is. They can genuinely be a good player, but with just radar, they'll be an amazing player. And they'll be smart enough to know when to take losses. A truly good closet cheater will have stats similar to a really good player. Anyone winning 90% of their games and dropping 30 kills every match is obviously going to raise some red flags, but the smart ones won't make it that obvious, and they likely won't ever get caught.